News Now is brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, Docomo Pacific, island-wide, worldwide, the choice is clear. And Micronesia Renewable Energy, go solar for zero money down. And Colgate Optic White, whiter teeth in 1 week. From the Pacific News Center in Hagåtña, Guam, here's Clint Ridgell and Janella Carrera, Betsy Brown, Roselle Romanos, PNC Sports with Blake Watson, and weather with Rebecca Kim. With your news now.
Day and good evening. Thanks for tuning in to Pacific News Center's News Now. I'm Clint Ridgell.
And I'm Janella Carrera. Day and good evening to all of our viewers in Guam and in Saipan. Topping your news tonight with little to no answers from the Department of Corrections on HIV treatment for accused murderer Keith Garrido. At least one attorney says Garrido can make a case for his freedom. On The Breakfast Show this morning, attorney Howard Trapp said Keith Garrido's constitutional rights were being violated. Garrido is in prison waiting to be tried for the murder of Nancy Moffness back in November of 2012. Because he's only considered a detainee and not an inmate, DOC has previously stated that their policy does not require them to treat Garrido for HIV. But attorney Trapp, who does not represent Garrido, says this is all wrong.
You can't just keep violating his constitutional right and say, well, government of Guam has to get him medical attention time and time again, and they ignore it, and they either take him straight to for medical care, or they release him. That's his remedy. That's the Constitution. That's the law.
I agree with you that that is the remedy. I'd hate to see it happen.
I'm not saying that it's a good idea to release him. I'm just saying that the government of Guam, if they're going to have detainees, they've got to have the right kind of facilities and the right kind of treatment.
The issue has blown up in the media since Garrido's attorney, Stephen Hattori, announced in court earlier this month that his client agrees to plead guilty in exchange for HIV treatment. But Judge Alberto Tolentino rejected that plea deal and ordered DOC to provide the necessary treatment. It's still unclear if Garrido has been treated for HIV since. Trapp went on to say that, backed by constitutional law, Garrido could fight for his freedom as early as today.
If they don't do it by the end of today, he should go to the district court and get released.
DOC Director Jose San Agustin has been silent on the matter since the issue came up. He has not responded to several PNC inquiries about Garrido or DOC policies.
Former Governor Carl Gutierrez has challenged Governor Eddie Calvo to an independent audit to prove whether or not he gave some $3 million in tax write-offs to family businesses. Governor Calvo says he's open to an audit by the public auditor, and he's challenging Gutierrez to allow for an audit of Arunao.
During the GMA debate this week, former Governor Carl Gutierrez accused Governor Eddie Calvo of writing off $3.6 million in taxes for family businesses this year. It's information Gutierrez says he received from a whistleblower at Revan Tax. He challenged Calvo to an independent audit. Governor Calvo says these accusations are false.
I am requesting that the public auditor work with the public Department of Revenue and Tax, audit Department of Revenue and Tax, and bring it out to the people. Let's see, what these false statements, how would you say, how illegitimate they are. I have nothing to hide.
No way, public auditor. They bullied that poor lady into submission. First, she came out with a $27 million deficit of that particular fiscal year. The next day, she was sitting there all intimidated, and she never said that it was $3 million surplus. They were saying it while she's sitting there.
But now Governor Eddie Calvo has levied a challenge back.
There were also many questions when my opponent left office as governor in regards to, as a governor, acquiring large properties in the north in Arunao, with that also building a house in Arunao, also connecting all this infrastructure into Arunao at a time when power was being cut to many of our citizens, as well as water was disconnections as well.
Number one, how did I buy Arunao? First of all, it was offered for me to buy it at $220,000 from Mr. Pete Artero, and I bought it from him. And he said, how am I getting my water up there and my power? First of all, there is no public service of water or power up there. So I have solar panels, and I truck my water in just like anybody else up there in Oruna.
Governor Calvo has also said that Gutierrez was receiving a stipend while governor and living in his private residence. Gutierrez, on the other hand, says that is false.
Should a state of emergency be declared for the Guam Police Department's crime lab? Forensic Science Division Chief Lieutenant Ronald Taitano thinks so, but Police Chief Fred Bordallo denied the request. PNC's Betsy Brown reports.
The lack of a working environmental control system, poor air quality, a collapsing roof, and condensation and mold issues are the problems Division Chief Lieutenant Ronald Taitano cited in a memo to Police Chief Fred Bordallo this month, asking that a state of emergency be declared for the island's crime lab. Bordallo denied the request. While he admits there are structural problems and environmental concerns at the crime lab, Bordallo told PNC today that none of this is stopping the forensic scientists who work in the crime lab from fulfilling their mission.
I define a state of emergency as closing the lab, stopping all functions, stopping all the drug, the testing that they're doing there, and moving to another facility. And certainly that's not the case. Everything is operating normally right now at the lab.
Bordallo says no evidence is being damaged by the conditions of the facility, and no investigations are being hampered. However, during a visit to the crime lab this afternoon, PNC found that the conditions do limit productivity. The crime lab has 2 alternate light source rooms where criminalists look at clothing for things like bodily fluids. However, the room I'm standing in has condensation issues causing drips from the ceiling that, if it were used, would compromise evidence. Still, Bordallo says maintenance issues such as these can be addressed without an emergency declaration, as there are funding sources available.
We do have some funding, and an agreement with the judiciary that when we expend some funds for maintenance or repair, such as the complex equipment, such as that environmental control facility equipment, that the judiciary will reimburse us.
While GPD struggles to maintain the crime lab as it is, it's due for an expansion soon, as a USDA loan and funding from the Department of the Interior will allow for a DNA lab to be added to the facility. Betsy Brown, PNC News.
After 3 days of jury selection, attorneys in the Agababa murder trial have finally put together a jury panel. Opening statements are now scheduled for next Monday. Alan Agababa is accused of slaying his mother, Shelley June Bernstein, back in August of 2013 to collect hundreds of thousands of dollars in life insurance benefits. At the time, police said evidence pointed to Agababa as the murderer because he was the last to see his mother alive and the first to report her death. He also allegedly made inquiries about his mother's life insurance policy around the time of her death. One of the key witnesses expected to testify is Bobby Hall, who told investigators that a few months before Bernstein was found dead, Agababa had sought his help in getting a gun with a silencer. Hall also said that Agababa told him that he needed to take care of an inheritance issue. However, Agababa's defense attorney, Randy Cunliffe, argued that Hall is a convicted felon and that evidence shows that Agababa did not state that he had the inheritance issue, but that his mother had an inheritance issue and that Agababa wanted to take care of it for her. Again, opening statements are scheduled for Monday at 9 a.m.
All right, well, stay tuned. Coming up next on News Now, the Guam Airport Authority comes out with a new mobile app.
And we'll check in with Blake Watson to see what he's got for us in sports.
I know what you heard, but never mind, Academy. GW does it better. Geckos and Cougars battle for the championship in volleyball, and the Raiders clip the wings of Eagles in the GNYFF. Sports coming up.